So I was talking to one of my cousins that I grew up with on the phone last night, and this subject about the fight that the blacks and whites had, some black and white people had in Tulsa, Oklahoma, came up, and he is deep into it, and I had no idea that he had gotten that deep into a story that is so overblown, it's not even funny. And he was going on and on and on about it. So I'm like, what the? I'm really tired of black people begging and blaming and complaining about stuff that has nothing to do with the failure of their lives, their inability to earn for themselves and do for themselves and think for themselves. It has nothing to do with it, but there are these race hustlers that is mind controlling the blacks, so that they can get power and wealth. And because most black people identify with being black, they don't realize that they're being controlled. And they too think that they're going to get money and stuff from this, reparation and all that. But it's really just going to go to the mind controlling blacks. And these people underneath them who are falling for the okie doke won't see a dime of it. But they don't have sense enough to know it. But I am sick of black people whining, begging, and blaming. You can tell when a person is a loser. It's adult, especially adults, right? They're always begging and blaming someone else. They take no responsibility for their own lives. So I asked my producer to get a little bit more information on this story. Nick is here, better known as the anchor baby, and also an expert. And I asked him to get a little bit more information on this Tulsa, Oklahoma incident. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning.
Again.
Yes.
So you trying to show your muscles?
Me? No, I'm just sitting. What do you mean?
I noticed you have your sleeves all rolled up.
I'm just sitting down. What do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about.
You notice your sleeves are rolled up?
Oh, no, I didn't mean to.
Oh, yeah, right. Oh, no, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to make you cry.
I'm not a show-off.
So what's the deal with this thing that the black people are trying to blow up to be a big deal?
The Tulsa Race Massacre.
That's what they're calling it now.
Right. Huh? It's crazy. And it
words are meant to control you folks.
Big time.
To cause you to become emotional or angry.
And is what I had in mind when putting this together, what you were saying about how words control, because it is May 31st today, Memorial Day, and the media and black people are choosing to focus on the Tulsa Race Massacre, which happened on May 31st, 1921. And so
they're
1921.
What the?
100 years ago.
Well, and now they are taking an incident and turning it into a massacre. Mm-hmm. Reparations, folks. Reparation forever.
Mm-hmm, big time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure many of you have heard of Black Wall Street. That's all the same thing. Tulsa, the Greenwood attacks, the riots, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. That's what they're talking about. This whole incident, right? And the story goes, I imagine there's other incidents that brought upon a lot of tension in the town, but the story goes that there's a young black teenager named Dick Rowland, right? He's a young black teenage orphan who had actually dropped out of school to work as a shoe shiner because he was doing pretty well. So he worked as a shoe shiner, and at the time, elevators were operated by elevator operators. And he went into a building called the Drexel Building to try and use the restroom. On his way there, he used the elevator. In the said elevator was a white teenage elevator operator named Sarah Page. And the story goes, this is where it gets disputed. There's a scream. A scream is heard from the elevator, and a nearby clerk reports the assault, which turned out to be, they're saying, a sexual assault. The next day, Dick Rowland was arrested. The disputed story is that he simply tripped, and she startled and she screamed. And so that controversy continues, right? This is this disputed story. He ends up going to the court. A mob arrives because of reports were put in headlines in the newspapers. The newspaper headlines read, "Nab Negro for assault of a white teenager," right? So he's in the court. A mob of people arrive to the court. And in response to this mob, this apparently, allegedly a white mob, a black group of people arrive. And so these two groups, they start getting more and more into it until finally shots rang out and all hell broke loose, right? So that's the story, right? That's the story that we're told that sparked what they're calling a massacre, but actually used to be called the Tulsa Race Riots.
Yeah, it wasn't a massacre. I saw a documentary on this story a while back, and it was totally different than what these blacks are trying to say now. And I believe, I'm going to have to find it again, but it was something like a black businessman and a white businessman got into an argument, and one thing led to another. But the blacks, because they were trying to get free money and power over the American people, they called it a massacre, and tried to make it something that
It's true.
it wasn't.
And it's crazy because they changed it recently to massacre.
Yeah.
It was called the race riots, or just riots, but race riots, it was in newspapers.
For a long time.
For a long time.
Yeah.
But the race massacre thing, which you're going to hear a lot of, is only very recent. And it's thanks to these commissions, which we'll get into in a second, these commissions that were put together to re-examine the events, basically rewrite history.
Yeah.
They re-examine the events of Tulsa, and these commissions, one in 1997, one in 2001, and the recent one, the Centennial Commission, they re-examined the history of Tulsa, and of course, the reason to do so was to examine a path to reparations.
These are the same type of people that call the Capitol protest insurrection or something
Correct.
dumb like that. Same type of people.
And they'll leave out key details, right?
Right.
You watch any news report, or we have a few clips, but any of these news reports, they're so dramatic, and they leave out key stuff. Like, for example, when this mob of people met, right, when the riots were sparked, the white mob that arrived, and then the black mob that arrived armed, 10 white people died. After shots rang out,
Right.
doesn't know which side started it. There's conflicting reports, but according
James
to
is getting the
Wikipedia,
phone, folks. Just be patient, all right? Go ahead.
this is from Wikipedia, but 10 black people died, 10 white people died, 10 black people died. And it was in response to this initial scuffle that the so-called 16 hours of violence happened afterwards, right? And they talk about 300 people died. They talk about all sorts of stuff. And I do want to maybe quickly play this first clip just to give you a sense of how dramatic it all is.
Okay, so this is
It's from Detroit Free
Detroit
Press.
Free Press, long history story of 1921 Tulsa race, getting wide cover on. So are these people celebrating this or
Instead of Memorial Day.
Memorial Day?
They're talking about this instead of Memorial Day.
What the?
And it's the 100th anniversary, 2021. So this is
Here we go.
The Tulsa Race Massacre is believed to be one of the worst incidents of racial violence in American history. From May 31st to June 1st in 1921, as many as 300 people were killed, hundreds were injured, and thousands of buildings were destroyed. It started after a newspaper reported a black man tried to sexually assault a white woman. Though it's still uncertain what exactly happened, many did not believe that story. The Oklahoma Historical Society said the most common explanation is Dick Rowland stepped on Sarah Page's foot when he entered the elevator, causing her to scream. A group of armed black men went to the courthouse to offer help protecting Rowland once they heard talks of lynching. A crowd of white men was also on the scene. A shot was fired and the riots began.
Amazing.
right. There's always the key details left. I mean, there's reports that her clothes were ripped, right? They leave that out. There's the initial killing of the 10 white men from that first interaction, right? So there's a lot of details here and there, and you can go back and forth, but this is what they choose to remember 100 years later, right? And they're gonna obfuscate and change the details for an agenda, right?
Yeah, of course.
In fact, what I'm talking about here is the 1921 Race Massacre Centennial Commission, right? This is from Tulsa World. And this commission was put together in 2017. It's one of many, by the way. And they started calling it a massacre. This is very modern, actually. It was never called. We were just saying, right?
Yep.
So they called it the
They have
Tulsa
to
Race Massacre.
dramatize it in order to get an emotional response from the fallen people. Mm-hmm. That's why.
And these commissions, besides the one I just talked about, they are the ones who started talking about, 300 black people died, right? And these exaggerated claims is what makes all the details of what happened untrustworthy.
Yeah.
Especially when they have a motive as corrupt as reparations. Right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to trust any of this.
It's all about the money. It's just like that woman from Black Lives Matter, Patrice
Colors.
Patrice
Killer.
Yeah. They were shouting Black Lives Matter, right, and going around committing an insurrection upon the country.
Big time.
And so the white people came to gave them a bunch of money, right? And now Patrice, according to report, is being forced to step down from her hell because she's using that money for her buy homes and for her herself. It's never about the people. It's always about the money. Mm-hmm. It's always about the position. But the blacks are so dumb they can't see it. That's what blows my mind about it. And the men, the black males, are just like the black women. Mm-hmm. They don't see it either. So because they don't have a solid mind, it's crazy. It's about the money.
It is, and it's crazy to see, even some of our black hater callers, and they just repeat like these things that I'm reading articles. I'm just like, this sounds exactly like Earl or somebody. You know what I mean? They're saying like word for word. Like, okay, yeah, I'll just repeat that. Yeah,
that dumb guy Tony. He's like it's almost like Tony doesn't have the lights are on, but nobody at home, right?
Someone else is speaking through him.
Yeah, he'll just repeat it, and he sounds like he old too, and he just suck it up.
Big time. Yeah, they'll talk about, they're saying it was the first bombing on U.S. ground. They say, I was reading this one report that said that Pearl Harbor wasn't the first aerial bombing on America. It was the Tulsa riots, because they say that airplanes were dropping bombs, right? This is one of the wildest claims of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Airplanes drop bombs. But
that's what my cousin was saying last night. And I was surprised to see him be that way because I grew up with him. Mm-hmm. So he around my age. I'm a little older than him, I think. I never expect him to be that dumb. I just, you just don't expect your family members to be dumb. Mm-hmm. But anyway.
It's a highly disputed thing. There seems to have been, the reports that there were planes seems to be true. There were accounts of planes. But the connection that there were bombs, there seems to be no connection because these planes were little bipennials is what they're called, not equipped to
I'm
bomb.
sure it's not true.
And there was no way. The reports were that it's hard to explain how it was organized or anything. And so it seems to be, they leave out how like it seems to be that at the time planes would drop like canisters with messages, especially when a lot was going on, to keep in contact with people on the ground. So the people in the plane were watching this riot go off. They're taking notes and then giving it to people on the ground because the National Guard was brought in to like end all this, right? And so it looks like the reports of them dropping these canisters of messages became bombs. You know what I mean?
One thing I can guarantee you, whatever the story is, the real story, it ain't what we've been told. Mm-hmm. That's for sure. Because the people who are presenting these stories are incapable of telling the truth because they have a financial agenda.
It's true.
That's what it is.
And what you say about your cousin reminds me of this one clip. And it's actually Chris, because I was watching this one little documentary by Vox, and I saw this one moment where this Tulsa city councilor claimed that this massacre was how white people dealt with successful blacks. Made me realize how like crazy the like conclusions people come up with, right?
Right.
It was a out of control fight between, it was anger, right?
Right.
Angry people fighting.
Yeah.
And there was fatalities on both sides, which they never mentioned. There was white people that died. But the conclusion that they come up with, and I want you to hear her say this, is just insane.
This was by Vox, you said?
Correct, yeah. And this is a Tulsa city councilor.
And, okay, here we go.
Hundreds of white people descended upon Black Wall Street, armed. Some of them were armed and fought back, but they were outnumbered by the white mob, which shot their way through. The white mob murdered, they looted, and they set fire to Black Wall Street.
This was the strategy, if you will, of how to deal with these communities, with these successful Black communities. The effects were disastrous.
The conclusion is that these white people just didn't like successful Blacks. They're successful, so let's end them. Like the conclusion from, okay, it was angry groups that went out of control too. White people just don't want to see Blacks succeed, so they had to, bring us down.
It's amazing how they can just say dumb stuff.
Yeah.
And you hear other people quoting it as though it's true, even though it's dumb. It doesn't make sense at all. This is why I'm encouraging people to start thinking for themselves.
Big time.
Because these folks just say anything nowadays, and the folks go for a ride. It's crazy.
And these words, you just start repeating the words, and the spell has been set.
So did we play various sources?
No, I was being I was being quick, but you might want to see this. This is just I just put together like a clip of different news sources calling it the massacre, right?
Oh, yeah, let's give you an example, folks, of the brainwashing technique that they use upon you because you're in a fallen state, you're emotional, and emotional people will believe anything but the truth. They'll believe anything but the truth. So this is from various sources. The media is calling it the Tulsa Race Massacre. Watch this.
On June 1st, 1921, 9-year-old Eldoris McCondichie was awakened by her mother. What her mother said next, she never forgot.
She says, we have to go out, get out. She says, the white people are killing the colored people.
100 years ago, this community experienced a race massacre.
18 hours of sheer destruction. 18 hours of men fleeing for their lives.
But for Black Tulsans, the story didn't end with the massacre.
On Tuesday, President Biden will travel to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to visit survivors of one of the worst race attacks in America's history. 100 years ago tomorrow, white mobs looted and burned a part of town known as Black Wall Street. They killed as many as 300 Black Americans and left thousands homeless. A massacre so horrific, a lot of people didn't talk about it for decades.
That's why she says as many as 300, because it's a disputed thing. So they have to use that language.
Right.
Yeah, that's why you got to be careful with language and words.
Yeah.
Then she didn't say 300 Black people died because she knows that it's a disputed thing. And white people died too. It's just all disputed. So
I was thinking over the weekend how Black people have been catered to, at least maybe even before the Civil Rights Movement, because I remember that trader W.D. Du Bois and others, so-called talented 10. So they were brainwashing some of the Blacks way back then. But Black people have been so catered to and lied to and given free stuff. And I realized that they have been brainwashed. I realized they've been set up. So there will come a day where you put them out front so that they can literally just destroy the country. And now that day is at hand. If you notice, they're putting these Blacks out front in government, in the media, in the schools and everywhere, and in the military, putting all our lives at risk. And the only purpose of these Blacks is to destroy. And they've been so wound up and brainwashed until they can't see that they are cursed and their own purpose in life is to destroy. And that they're out front now being used for destruction. It sounds like nobody else see it, but it's so insane. Have we ever had a white commission to study Black on white crime?
that's a good point.
Have there ever been?
I don't think so. We should have it.
Back in a moment. There are awful things, real things happening every day. Real things happening now. And instead of focusing on The real thing that are things that are happening to this day, as Haight would say, they're like looking at 100 years and know nothing about what they're talking about.
To this day.
That's right. And the blacks are so dumb, they're falling for it, right? They have abortion today is out of control in the black community and in the country, period, right? But especially in the black community, most of the abortion mills are located in the inner cities, killing black babies in the womb. But nothing about that, no problem. It's a massacre happening by way of abortion. A massacre happening by way of black-on-black crime around the country. Today, not 100 years ago, but to this day, a massacre, black-on-black crime, nothing at all. No news report, barely any news reports on it or anything. No black people complaining about it or anything. Black on white crime, to this day, a massacre. Nothing being said. It's okay. But 100 years ago, when most of the stories are made up, big deal, right? Because that's where the money is. The money is in accusing white people because they want reparations. These black folks have been talking about reparations for a long time. Illegal aliens are overtaking the country, bringing in crime, committing crime like now they're going north. No nothing. But 100 years ago, the white man killed the black man. How dumb can you be? Really, just think about that. Something that you know nothing about, but you're real upset about it. But things that are happening right now, you can care less. There is no money in black on white massacres or black on black massacres or illegal aliens on people massacres. No money in that. But there is money in falsely accusing white people. Because the whites have the money. They work the hardest. They do the time, and they get paid. And so the money is in white people, and that's why they're going after the whites. It's about money, folks. It's not about anything else but that. I guarantee you, if white people didn't have any money, they would find somebody else to attack. They would probably attack the Jews. It's amazing. It's a battle between good and evil, right versus wrong. There's no love in the world. They don't love anyone. There is no love. And y'all falling for it. Amazing. And don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, and share the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show, folks. We really appreciate it. We are at war. It is a spiritual battle for the soul of America. And it's going to take all of us to do it.